You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
We're live.
I said, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. I said, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. We're gonna drink a fine whiskey and smoke a really fine cigar.
It's time for happy hour. It's the Man Cave Happy Hour. Whiskey, cigars, spirits, and stories that go along with it. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Hey, I am Matthew Fox.
And we are downtown Detroit. One of our favorite destinations. We love getting in the city. And we're at the Sugar House.
We're in Corktown.
Yes.
It's the Sugar House.
We're getting our Irish on.
Yes, we are.
And we're going to get our Scottish on.
Yeah, we're getting our Scottish on tonight. We have a very special guest with us tonight,
yes.
too.
National brand ambassador. Mm-hmm. Cameron George.
Absolutely.
And you represent both Ardbeg and Glenmorangie.
Absolutely, yep.
More orangey.
More orangey.
Yes.
Glenmorangie.
There it is.
And Ardbeg, two very iconic distilleries from Scotland.
Yes.
I fell in love with both of them quite early in my bartending career. Actually, Glenmo was the first whiskey that I ever fell in love with.
Nice.
And I have not looked back ever since.
Kind of stuck with the Scottish, the
Absolutely.
Scotch and whiskey.
I bounced around. I fell in love with quite a few different American whiskeys, and I had my love affair with mezcal as well. But honestly, it's always been about Scotch for me. So, came right back to it. Ardbeg, I visited out at Ardbeg 5 years ago and fell in love with that distillery, that place, the people, and now 5 years later, I get to be national ambassador for my favorite brand on the planet.
That's
fantastic.
That's pretty amazing. So, what led you to being a brand ambassador? Was there a college degree behind this? Was it just years of drinking? What is a blend of the two, like scotches? What is it?
So just kind of a little bit about me. Actually, no, it wasn't a college degree. I ended up deciding I was finished at university. I was going to school in Portland, and I moved home. My mom is a very tough love kind of human being.
All right.
So she decided, you know what? Nah, you can't live here. You got to get a job. You got to find a way to put food on your table. And so I started washing dishes at a dive bar, and I found out that I loved the way that bars made people feel. They're about community. They're about people desiring to be a part of something more than just themselves.
Nice.
Right? And I also fell in love with spirits as well. After working in the dive bar, I went into kind of a craft cocktail scene, started working at a lot of well-known craft cocktail bars in Seattle, Washington, my home. And from there, just started learning a lot more about spirits, about the intersection of culture and, encapsulating time in a bottle. That's what whiskey is.
Right.
And so I just fell in love with that, and I developed a very strong passion for it, so stuck with it.
You have to be a people person to do what you do as well.
Absolutely.
You will have to want to know that you want to get to know people.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to talk on a level, and doing what you do today, you can talk on a very high level, but we're novices on the Man Cave Happy Hour.
That's
all
the
good.
point. We're here to learn.
We're here to learn.
Yeah.
So, appreciate all the knowledge that you bring to the table tonight. My question for you guys, for you right now is, what led you down to pick the cocktails so far tonight?
Absolutely, yeah. So the two cocktails that we're featuring right now, the Riptide, which actually has a little bit of Gelnmorangie and some Ardbeg, as well as a little bit of guava. Gelnmorangie aims to make one of the lightest and cleanest and most floral styles of distillate on the market. They make what I lovingly refer to as breakfast whiskey, right? So it's such an incredible
I'm pulling catchphrases out of here.
Exactly.
It's a time in a bottle, breakfast whiskey. I love this. All right.
Exactly. So Gelnmorangie makes very approachable, very floral style of Scotch. And then its older brother, actually, because Ardbeg actually predates Gelnmorangie Distillery.
Okay.
Ardbeg makes this very just large, untamed, just beast of a whiskey, right?
Right.
So those two things working in tandem can do some really beautiful things. Some of the nuance that I love about Ardbeg is that it's not only just smoke and gloom and doom.
Right.
We actually aim to make what is, in effect, the lightest spirit on Islay as well. So that's why Ardbeg goes so well with citrus. You're looking at me what do you mean?
It's so light, right?
So it's heavily peated,
Yes.
but we're also the only Islay whiskey distillery with what we call a purifier on our stills. So that purifier actually allows us to kind of fake some of the reflux that Gelnmorangie achieves naturally because they have very tall stills, actually the tallest in all of Scotland, right?
These stills have been around since 1843.
Exactly. So the ones that Gelnmorangie came in, were not installed by the Maitland brothers who actually built the distillery. They were actually installed late in the 70s, right? Okay. At Ardbeg, however, the purifier, the piece of equipment that I spoke about a little bit earlier, there's actually no written record of when that went onto the stills at Ardbeg. So that's kind of part of the lore of the distillery, is that, we don't know when this went on, but we've actually had it on the stills, essentially every iteration of the stills that we've done at Ardbeg. We're even now going through an expansion where 2 new stills are being added. The spirit still that's being added at Ardbeg will actually also have a purifier as well. Right?
Because we were commenting as we were trying the welcome cocktails, and we always love when there's welcome cocktails. We know we're in trouble when there's welcome cocktails. Yeah, but we were noting that the Manhattan made primarily with the Ardbeg.
You're a sucker for it.
Really,
but you love a Manhattan.
really light.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's like a little cucumber as a garnish, and so you're not expecting that light fresh.
Yep.
Especially when you have a Scotch-based Manhattan, and I taste it. There's a lot of peat, but it's not heavy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, like that. Even though Ardbeg is such a kind of like a peaty paradox of a whiskey, right? So the most heavily peated whiskey in regular production.
That's my rapper name, by the way.
Peaty Paradox. Peaty Paradox. I love that.
Sorry,
it's not. That is gold. It should be. And I look forward to the album Petty and Peaty when you put that out, right?
It's gonna have a very Irish feel to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lots of pipes.
So yes, actually Ardbeg, we do utilize a phenolic malt barley base of about 55 to 65 parts per million, right? Okay. So essentially phenols are these like water soluble, kind of like heavier organic compounds that will essentially attach themselves to the outside of the husk of barley throughout the malting process, specifically in the drying phase, right? Okay. So when you go to dry barley that's actually being malted, right? What happens is, for the first 16 hours, our malting facility, Port Ellen Maltings, is going to take peat, right? So peat moss, that's essentially just decaying plant matter that lives in a carbon neutral, or a carbon rich environment, so it doesn't decay all the way. Sure. So it's got a lot of organic fusels that can still be ignited and burned, right? So when you burn that over the first 16 hours, some of that smoke, that peat smoke, carries forward what you call phenols. So those phenols will attach themselves to the outside of the malted barley, and that's what gives you the aromatics and the flavor of smoke, right?
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
My mind just blew.
It's like I love the information. I love the information.
Right.
So Ardbeg and Glenmorangie, are they affiliated, or how are they connected?
They are brother, sister, brother and brother, sister and sister, however you want to refer to it. These 2 distilleries will forever be linked.
Okay.
1997, Gelnmorangie Company came in and actually purchased Ardbeg.
Okay.
Ardbeg had been essentially closed since 1981, well, at least from 81 till 89, and then again from 91 until 97. The distillery was actually set to be knocked down and be demolished. Gelnmorangie came in and bought it, and do you want to take a guess at how much they spent to buy the distillery?
Okay, is this
it's either high or lower,
right? Yeah,
because either they got it for a steal or they took a bath on
exactly.
it.
It's one or the other.
Well, if it was scheduled for destruction, I'm gonna go low. I'm gonna say under $1 million, maybe 750.
I'm gonna go under 7.5 million.
Exactly. You basically be exactly right. So about 7 million.
Okay.
7 million. A large part of the purchase was actually for some of the whiskeys that had been sitting there throughout some of the 70s, and they had been sitting dormant during the 80s as well, right?
Stuff was sitting in barrels for a while?
Yep. Yeah, stuff was sitting in barrels for quite a long time because there was just no activity at the distillery because the whiskey industry was, quite honestly, taking a nosedive off of a cliff,
Sure.
Whiskey had lost a lot of popularity. People were drinking a lot of vodka. Single malt specifically, there were mass closures across the industry. So Ardbeg suffered and ended up closing, and Gelnmorangie is kind of the light at the end of the tunnel that kind of pulled us out of that darkness.
Oh my goodness! Okay,
Yeah.
so they will be intertwined for some time.
Yep, for
So
years.
you have a master distiller,
Yes.
Doctor. I love he's got a doctor.
Dr.
Right?
Bill Lumsden.
Yeah. So Dr. Bill is he the master distiller at both locations?
So, yes, Dr. Bill doesn't work out of either distillery.
Right.
His actual office is in Edinburgh, at what we call the Cube, right?
The Pew?
The Cube.
Cube.
The Cube.
I like
yeah.
that.
Yep.
I like
exactly.
cubes.
So the Cube is essentially the crown jewel in the mad scientist's crown, you know. So
Okay.
that's where he does all of the nosing of each whiskey that Ardbeg and Glenmorangie put out and have put out since 1995, I believe, is when he started with Gelnmorangie Company. So he is in effect the head of our whiskey creation team. He does have a brilliant young man by the name of Brendan McCarran, who is his right hand, and then Jillian, who is essentially the other right hand. There's no left hand in this situation as well,
Everybody
right?
knows exactly which hand is doing it,
Exactly,
right?
yeah. So the three of them are the whiskey creation team behind Ardbeg and Glenmorangie. Each distillery does have a distillery manager that oversees day-to-day production and production of the new make spirit. Right?
All right, and so there's several offerings from each of the distilleries.
Yes.
And we have two in front of us, one from each. We asked you, give us a little something, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
we enjoyed the cocktails immensely, but let's try the Naked Soul.
Absolutely.
And see what we got. So let's start with, well, where should we start?
Right? So I would say let's start with the Gelnmorangie Quinta Ruban, right?
Okay.
Quinta Ruban. So Gelnmorangie Quinta Ruban is quite an interesting whiskey that's just gone through a very fun facelift. Right?
Okay.
So the original Quinta Ruban was actually part of what we call the EMR range, Extended Matured Range, right? EMR, right? So at Gelnmorangie, they are the masters of finishing whiskeys. Essentially, since the mid-60s, 1967, they started experimenting with secondary aging of spirit in secondary barrels, right?
Okay.
So meaning they'll take a barrel or they'll take new made spirit, put it into ex-bourbon barrels,
Right.
and then pull that out of the ex-bourbon barrel and put it into another style of cask, right? So they started that when they started essentially messing around with sherry casks, right?
Yes.
Quinta Ruban is not a sherry cask finish. It's actually a ruby port cask finish,
Ooh, okay.
right? So we've taken that whiskey that we've laid down for 10 years and then put it into ruby port casks.
For how long? How long does it hang out in the Ruby Port cask?
So realistically, this first batch of Quinta Ruban is between 11 and 12 years in the ex-bourbon and about 2.5 to 3 years in the port cask.
The color
Yes.
is gorgeous.
It's shocking.
I mean the color on this.
It's got an amber look to it.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
a very clear.
It
Yep.
depending on the light hitting it, it's like you get a rose glare here and there.
Nailed it. You absolutely nailed that. That's one of my favorite elements about pouring this whiskey is not only the way it looks in glass or the way that it looks, as you're essentially in the bottle, but how it looks when it's coming out of the bottle into your glass. You get this perfect like ruby red, almost grapefruit undertone that sits and kind of rides along like the copper, the amber notes as well. It's just a beautiful whiskey to look at in the sun. It's shockingly beautiful.
So now when I nose this, because we got one to split here, Matt, you're getting sloppy seconds, man.
I should have thought ahead. Sorry, gents. I should have grabbed
That's
two.
okay. I'll take it.
You're good. So as I'm nosing this one, what should I look for?
I'll just live
smell
vicariously
Yeah.
for a second.
So first and foremost, I think that it's clearly and unmistakably Gelnmorangie. You're going to get a lot of elements of like white flower, a little bit of lemon peel, jasmine as well. But then you're going to start to notice something deeper, something a little bit darker, something a little bit richer. That is actually the ruby port cask kind of shining through a little bit there, right?
I'm nosing it myself, and it's very sweet on the nose.
Exactly, nailed it.
very neat, very
I
sweet.
pull out like a little bit of like chocolate as well as some dark like cigar notes. Maybe it's just the fact that I had a couple of Cuban cigars last night, but like
Still sitting on your palate. is it?
Exactly, yeah. Maybe it is that, but I do get this like almost nutty driven kind of characteristic to the whiskey, as well as some residual sugar as well that's kind of lingering around the rim of the glass,
Jamie's a big peat guy. He likes his peat. So he's tasting it right now, and I'm curious, Jamie, what do you think of the peat on this?
It's not overpowering.
Okay.
It's in there. It's subtle. The peat in this is actually a little more, for me right now, it's subtle. I had a sip and a half. Not super peaty. It's finishing, it's hanging out. There's some peat there as it's finishing.
As it's finishing, I'm getting honey. It's very sweet.
One of the things that I like to point out, and this is kind of a cool relationship between the two whiskey distilleries, is that I firmly believe that these distilleries make a 10-year or a base whiskey that is actually very similar to each other.
Yeah.
We just go about it by doing the exact opposite thing from each other at every possible turn.
Okay.
So Glenmorangie, think Highland. Ardbeg, think Isla. Gelnmorangie, definitely think unpeated. It's an unpeated whiskey. Ardbeg, think heavily peated. Gelnmorangie, think stainless steel fermentation. And Ardbeg, you have to think about the Oregon pine washbacks, right? And then they are the masters in finishing, while Ardbeg utilizes whole components that are aged separately. So the reason that I mentioned that there is because, yes, Gelnmorangie is an unpeated whiskey, but there, especially in Quinta Ruban, there are some traces of smoke.
Right.
Smoke isn't only tethered to peat, right? Smoke can actually come from the interaction of spirit moving in and out of the char layer inside of an ex-bourbon barrel, right? Because those barrels are toasted and then charred as well, right?
Yeah.
So some of that smoke can actually be because of the barrel influence, right? So there is actually a phenolic content to Gelnmorangie. It's just really, 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 really low.
Yeah.
Right?
So I wasn't getting much in here at all. It was very.
It's slight. I get a little bit of peat.
Yep.
I've been sipping on all kinds of stuff tonight already too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Scotch for me always tastes peaty.
Yep.
Scotch, because again my palate sucks, but any Scotch really feels peaty to me. But this has a different element for me.
Yep.
This is something that I want to actually go and buy like right now.
Absolutely.
And take it home.
You should.
When should someone start to drink this in an evening? Would it be at the beginning of the evening, middle of the evening, after dinner? What would go well with Gelnmorangie?
Whiskey fans,
yes,
hear me and hear me now.
Yes.
Drink whiskey whenever you feel like drinking whiskey. Drink whiskey however you feel like drinking whiskey. No one should tell you how to enjoy your glass of whiskey. Every dram should be personal to how you enjoy it.
I started asking that question just to
every brand rep and every distiller we talk to answers the same thing.
Exactly.
They're like, drink it however you want.
Drink it how you want. Just keep drinking it, But for me personally, Quinta Ruban, I absolutely love with steak.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
I love it with, a steak. I love it with bone marrow. Whereas, like something like the Gelnmorangie Original, the 10-year that Glenmo does, I'll generally drink that in highballs as kind of like refreshing cocktails before going into my meals. But again, that's just me personally, right? Everybody has a different relationship with whiskey.
So I was going to say, what would you pair this with? What type of food or fruit or snack would you pair this with?
Yeah, I would say absolutely something that has a little bit more weight to it. I mentioned like steak. Kind of as I was saying that, I was actually thinking like pork chop with some sort of like blueberry like crema on top of it or something like that as well. Anything that is like both rich and has like kind of fruit notes at the same time, that whiskey will go a long way with. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You're hogging it.
Yeah. Save some for me, guys.
Welcome to the man cave.
That's it. It's every man for himself in the man cave.
Yeah. Closed mouths don't get fed, as my mom said.
All right. So we have another one on the table.
Absolutely.
And it was really funny because Matthew and I, we DJ weddings and parties and stuff on the weekend. I teach high school. He's a banker. I do radio stuff, but we both do weddings. And he's got to meet with a bride and groom in probably about an hour.
Oh, yeah, it's getting there.
Let's get a double over here.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, no, we got lots of time.
It's going to be great.
We still got an hour.
I love you guys.
Right?
I love you. So before we ship Matthew off, what do we have in this other one? Here?
Whiskey number 2.
We're not in any kind of hurry. I was just
Of course,
teasing
yeah.
that. He's going to be lit when he goes talk to this Brian Graham.
That's on the phone anyway, so we're good.
It's a phone.
Oh, it's even better. Even better.
They won't be able to
Smell it. Yeah, I was going to say, there's not enough Tic Tacs.
Did he seem off to you? Yeah, just a little bit.
He's very jovial. All right, so what do we got?
So actually, it's very interesting that you kind of mentioned, they won't be able to smell you over the phone, right? Because this whiskey is aromatic as all get out. This is just an incredible whiskey. To me, it's already jumping out of the glass. Actually, I was walking behind you over here to sit down to do this, I could actually smell the Anno coming out of the glass even there, right? So Ardbeg Anno is an interesting whiskey that Ardbeg actually released in 2017.
Okay.
It's the newest addition to our core range. That's actually why I selected it. It's also the World Whiskey of the Year in terms of best Isla whiskeys, best peated whiskeys, and best non-age statement whiskeys as well.
All right.
So Ardbeg Anno has done very, very, very well this year.
Sounds like it.
It's an incredible dram that
Ardbeg N-O?
N-O, yeah, exactly. It's like, think of it like saying I know, but with a Scottish accent. I know. Right? I know.
Is it on the list here?
Absolutely. So it's the second one right there on the list, right here. Yep,
All right,
exactly.
All right.
The one with all the awards next to it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
So, and
Okay.
those are only from this year as well. Yeah,
Wow.
Right? Ardbeg this year was actually named World Whiskey Distillery of the Year, which is back-to-back 2018 and 2019 World Whiskey Distillery of the Year. But Ardbeg, I know, like I was saying, is the newest whiskey in our core range. So this is very interesting, and the reason that I selected it is because it's a perfect example of the nuance that Ardbeg is able to create within the peated malt category, right? So this draws on whiskeys that have spent their whole life in a marriage of different barrels. You have some whiskey that spent its whole life in first and second fill ex-bourbon barrels. You have some whiskey that spent its whole life in essentially Pedro Jimenez sherry casks.
Okay.
And you have whiskey that spent its whole life in virgin American oak, right? So those components are aged separately, but then they're brought together to create a new whiskey, right? And so that's really the large difference between how Ardbeg and Glenmorangie work. Gelnmorangie, masters in finishing whiskeys. Ardbeg, masters in assembling whiskeys.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Love that.
And so, Dr. Bill is leading up a crew,
He's a busy man.
making these blends.
Absolutely.
All right, so this is a blend. Yes.
It is by definition a single malt, but it's a vatting of different barrels.
Okay.
Right? So blend would lead us
heat
to
right
believe that it would be either single malts from multiple different distilleries,
Sure.
or essentially single malt that has been teaspooned into grain whiskey, right? That's what blend would imply.
Okay.
We refer to this as a vatting because this is a single malt from a single distillery.
Okay.
It's just different barrels, different styles of barrels that are being brought together.
It's got some amazing legs on
Yeah.
there.
It has
really
incredible
does.
legs to it, right? A lot of that is actually because of the first and second fill ex-bourbon, but more importantly, actually the virgin American oak. So virgin American oak is very high, or American oak in general is very high in a compound called lignin, right?
Okay.
So lignins essentially are broken down into smaller chains, things like vanillin, right? So that's why when you drink something like a bourbon, you think custard, you think vanilla, you think toffee, right? That's because of American oak and its lignin content, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I've never heard that word lignin before.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I mean, we've had a number of shows. That's the first time anyone's ever mentioned the word lignin.
Right.
before.
Well, again, that's what kind of gives you that. Like, that's why people are like, well, bourbon is so sweet. There's no sugar added to bourbon whiskey. It's actually just the interaction of the chemical compounds that exist within the wood and then the new made spirit, right?
Right.
Because alcohol is a solvent, right? So it breaks things down, it pulls flavors, it pulls compound, it extracts things out of that wood, right?
Right. Because I always get a vanilla feel out of any bourbon that I do.
Exactly.
Because that's just where my palate takes
Yep.
me. It's not educated enough.
Well, no, it is. It's perfectly educated because you're getting the main. Yeah, you're getting that vanillin, and that is a key indicator of American oak, right? So this whiskey is designed to be soft up front. It's supposed to be very inviting, almost supple, right? So I get like kind of mulled honey almost. Fresh, I get like fresh malted barley, a little bit of chocolate, maybe some blackberry, a little bit of fresh cracked pepper, and then that smoke. It's almost incendiary, right?
Black pepper.
The
black pepper came out.
the
almost
berry.
immediately.
I'm feeling that,
got
and
the
then
black
the
pepper
smoke
almost-
is in there. Very
Exactly.
Smoke is there. I love the smoke on that.
but it's not.
It's not overbearing. It is a perfect blend.
Yeah, exactly.
That smoke just really comes out, and it hit me really nicely.
ethanol flavor at all. Are you getting? I had none on the first one.
Yeah.
A little in this, but not bad. I mean, you're drinking.
Yeah.
You're drinking it, yeah.
Absolutely.
So just getting a little bit on this one.
I didn't really get any
not a
ethanol
ton.
on that one.
But the peat is like rounding it out, and that was there for just a moment, and then the peat's still hanging out.
Absolutely. But, it's very interesting. Even though we only utilize one recipe to create Ardbeg's new-made spirit, it's essentially that same recipe, that 55 to 65 parts per million in terms of its phenolic content. We're able to create whiskeys that appear less smoky or more complex based on the barrels that we're utilizing to create those whiskeys, right? So in the case of Anno actually tastes smokier to me than the 10-year does, even though it's softer up front.
Right.
Again, back to that kind of peaty paradox, right?
It's such a great smoky taste. It's got
Yeah.
such a great
Right?
smoky feel.
I'm loving Petey Paradox.
Yeah, I'm loving it. Yeah.
It's going on a
Wiki,
t-shirt.
wiki.
It's going on a t-shirt. Petey Paradox.
Love it.
Guy in a kilt behind some turntables with a bottle. I mean, that's it.
That was so delicious. I completely forgot what we were about to taste and just blindly took a sip of it, and I was just, gets my juices flowing. That is, exciting whiskey.
Your knowledge, Cameron, thank you so much.
Of course, not a problem.
With the Ardberg and the Gelnmorangie, oh my goodness.
Yep.
This is really a lot of fun.
That's one of the things is I'm a full-on proponent that whiskey should be less of a dark and scary and kind of mysterious place. We should have fun with our whiskey. We should encourage people to make cocktails. Whiskey should bring people together. It's not built to divide people, right?
Absolutely.
Whiskey should be a unifier.
Where are these available? So we're here in the Metro Detroit area, but nationwide, readily available?
Readily available.
Okay.
Yep.
It's
So these are both whiskeys that exist in the core range of both houses. So we make these whiskeys 365 days a year, every single year. There will never be really shortages on either of these whiskeys. I guess I shouldn't promise that. Dr. Bill, keep up the good work. Don't allow shortages now that I promised that to the people, right?
Working towards shortages.
Exactly, yeah.
But right now, pretty
readily available, yeah. All markets. Yep.
Okay. So if you look around, you'll find it. And, Cameron, thank you.
Of course.
We
Not a
capitalized
problem.
enough of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for
Really
everything.
appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and keep up the good work, y'all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers.
Appreciate you. Cheers.
Thank you very much, y'all.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers,
Cheers.
man.
Yeah, there it is. Clink, clink.
So great conversation with Cameron.
Oh, my goodness.
About the spirits, right?
Such a great guy.
Glenmorangie,
Really great guy.
Ardbeg, right?
Yeah.
Gotta say them right. They're tricky. Glenmorangie.
Morangie. Was it?
Glenmorangie.
More orangey.
Morangie. Glenmorangie.
Yeah. Ardbeg. It'll roll off the palate eventually.
So, but like we said, we're here downtown Detroit, and one of our favorite places to be downtown Detroit, and in downtown Detroit,
in Corktown.
one of our favorite places to be, the Sugar House.
Sugar House. Thank
Certainly my favorite place.
And with us.
Yeah, Jason Leinart. So, Jason, what do you do here at the Sugar House?
Well, I started off as a bar back at the Sugar House a little over 4 years ago. Currently, I work in marketing for the hospitality group, the Detroit Optimist Society, that oversees the Sugar House and some other bars and restaurants within the city of Detroit, including Wright and Company, the Peterborough, Bad Luck, Honest John's, Mutiny Tiki Bar. Sorry, I got distracted. Now I can't remember who I didn't say. Grandma Bob's right across the street. So we've got all those properties currently. But I did bartend here for a number of years. I still work on the whiskey program and the marketing. So it's really fun.
So the Sugar House, they have a few properties. But tell us about the Sugar House, because it's
Absolutely.
about 8 years running.
Yep. Our 8-year anniversary is coming up October 7th.
Yeah.
We're super excited. It's Detroit's original craft cocktail bar. So
And you guys do it right.
Phenomenal job.
Yeah, thank you. Dave Kwiatkowski is the sole owner here at the Sugar House. He's got a variety of different partners that work at some of the other properties. after the fact. But at the Sugar House, it's Dave is from Michigan, Detroit area originally. He traveled, worked in Chicago for a number of years. He had a blog that was really popular. He was super into cocktails, so he moved back to Detroit. Just really wanted to introduce Detroit to craft cocktails that he was familiar with. So I remember there's an anecdote of him. A lot of his friends were, giving him shit for, are you opening up an ultra lounge, a martini bar? And nobody really understood, I guess, at the time, sort of what the craft cocktail, here at Craft Cocktails entailed. So it's been great. I've kind of started off, I guess, as more of a prohibition speakeasy. People were still trying to wrap their heads around exactly what, cocktails represented with, fresh ingredients and a range of spirits, quality, care, all that good stuff. So
the space is great. We love because Corktown. Yeah, we're downtown Detroit. People
Detroit's
that
oldest
Detroit
neighborhood.
Area. You don't know that it's Corktown is just right adjacent to where the former Tiger Stadium used to be, and then they opened this massive Comerica Park thing, and they tore down Briggs Stadium, Tiger Stadium. They tore it down, and it was really kind of a coin toss as to what was going to happen to Corktown because the bars and restaurants down around here, really relied on the Tigers and Tiger Stadium.
Very much so.
And so when the stadium moved about a mile and a half, 3 miles over, it was really what's going to happen in Corktown, and Detroit wasn't on its juggernaut return that it is on right now. It was really a coin toss at that point, and then they jumped in, and that's around that time when they jumped in and opened this up. You have the Mercury Bar, the Slow's Barbecue. There's some good eats around here, and then you got the Sugar House with some great food.
Just the atmosphere of the space itself, it's very Art Deco. At that, were you part of this whole?
No, I don't have anything to do with the design.
The lovely wall of death.
No,
lovely wall of death.
It's certainly the lovely wall of death has grown over time. If you go back far enough, you can find some pictures of the first year where there's like maybe 30 bottles on the back bar, but that was solely up to Dave, a labor of love. He lived upstairs. Dave was generally really involved with the design and actual physical construction. So he built this place pretty much, obviously with help, but his vision, his manual labor, and as well as he actually bartended initially. So that was, going on 8 years. I've been here about 5 years, a little over 5 years. So, when I started here to speak to the growth of Corktown, there was a point where I think we didn't even have a sign on the door, and people were wondering, is it just kind of like the overflow of Slows? Because Slows was such an iconic Detroit institution, But even up to 5 years ago, cars were getting stolen.
Oh my God! I was going to say, you come down to Corktown. Make sure you take all your shit out of your car because your window is most likely going to get popped.
But now that's not the case. So that's
I've had my window cracked in front of St. Andrews more than once back in the mid '90s.
Any city that you go to, that's going to be a thing for. But I specifically remember Saturday nights.
The city is changing.
Working and literally cars would get stolen right on Michigan Avenue, right in front of the bar, and you're like, you felt so bad. But even in the last 2-3 years. It's really accelerated, and you've got Ford, purchased a train station over there, as well as investing in a number of blocks here.
So you guys are poised for some greatness here at the Sugar House.
Hey, you guys have events that happen here every so often. You do live jazz bands as well and such like that. Is
Nicole
that a monthly
New
thing, or?
Yeah, Nicole New is our monthly jazz feature once a month on Sunday night.
She's a friend of the show.
She's amazing. Yeah. I think, I've been fortunate to see her.
Or we want her to be a friend of the show.
Well, we should work on
that. No. So we know her. It's like, I teach high school, and the guy who was my student teacher, I DJ'd his wedding. She was a maid of honor and sang at the wedding. We worked, and we've known each other from the bars and pubs and stuff. And she is awesome. It's a good thing. If you're in Detroit, look it up because that's a good go wherever she's performing.
She's amazing. I've had the pleasure to see her at a number of locations, but there's something special about her in the space, the size, the intimacy, sort of Sunday night. Her voice is amazing. I think the interesting thing about what we do here is we call it the jazz jams because what she does, she's always singing, but she opens it up to any musician that kind of wants to come in and just step in. So people will come in, come out, and It really is an
Well, it's
interesting.
like an open mic night.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
Should do like Brandy, Looking Glass, because that's my jam.
I imagine
There's
I
a
imagine
pull-
she could
that
knock
is
it
your
out of the
go-to,
park.
isn't it?
On
so.
a Western Bay, and that's my that's karaoke. No, never mind. It's different. That's different. So our bartenders here, your bartenders here,
Yes.
pretty cool. They're up there shaking it up. And tell me about your bartenders, because it seems like you got a pretty cool array of folks behind the bar.
Oh yeah, I mean, I came up through the Sugar House system myself, started as a bar back server, bartender, manager, and honestly, Sugar House has been recognized one of Esquire's best bars, in America. It's a nationally recognized craft cocktail program, so standards are really high. It's a strenuous program that you've got to stick with, and but the the end result is that you got a lot of really talented people and passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 101 classic cocktails. Our menu is 101 classic cocktails, seasonal, a rotating menu. I think on any given month we pull the product mix. We could have 350 unique cocktails that people make. So, in addition to over 600 spirits on the back bar. So
Wow,
you
okay.
got to put the
There's a
work
lot
in.
up there.
Yeah.
Right. Even you got to put the work in before you step behind the bar. But what that does is it creates a system where, again, like, you're passionate about spirits, you're passionate about hospitality, you're passionate about cocktails. You get behind the bar, and that's what we do. We create memorable experiences through hospitality.
Sugar House has set the bar very, very high in
Thank you.
Detroit alone. So, so everyone's trying to do the same thing or trying to mimic what you do.
Yeah.
And
I think people are trying to mimic what's happening here, because it is very, very cool.
Well, I mean, we do mixology class. To this day, I'm surprised. I mean, for 5 years straight, we've been doing mixology classes that sell out every month. So people come in and
Because
learn
people want to
and-
make these cocktails at
Oh,
home.
yeah, absolutely.
Because this is
'Cause it's
fun.
fun.
You paper clip a fucking
It's
leaf to
absolutely
a
fun.
goddamn cup there. What the hell?
Yeah.
That's
But it
fun.
works.
Yeah,
You got your crinkly scissors, and
Yeah.
you cut that out,
And it's no judgment. It's
it's
like
no, it's great. It's fun. It's
it's
like
good.
people want to do that at
It's
home, but you guys
amazing.
teach that, and
Yeah.
it's fun to come down and do that. So there was something else. I was going somewhere else. It escaped me. The cocktails,
whiskey's
the
for.
recipes that are behind the bar. That was what I was going to say. Who's welcome at the Sugar House?
Oh, everybody. That's what I was kind of getting at with, like, there's no judgment. I mean, maybe there at times
21 and over, and that's it.
21 and over. Yes,
That's
it's
the
definitely.
judgment.
Besides
that's
that-
the only
judgment.
thing.
Game on.
Other than that, game on. If you
Because
want,
I'm an old fart.
Yeah.
I'm like, what, 53 now?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
I'm allowed?
Absolutely.
I'm not.
Absolutely.
No.
As long
no,
as do you have a
no hipster judgment.
no, absolutely
All
not.
right.
I mean, if somebody wants to come and order a Jack and
Yo,
Coke,
hey,
I would
Generation X, get out of here.
put that in front of your face with a smile, and hopefully by the time you're sitting there, you say,
called hospitality.
Yeah, it is. It really is hospitality. We strive to create memorable experiences of hospitality, and if what is in the glass puts a smile on your face, then we're happy with that. Now, hopefully, if you order Jack and Coke and you're happy, by the time you're sitting there enjoying that Jack and Coke, the person next to you or down the bar are having conversations. You're seeing things being smoked. You're seeing things being lit on fire. You're hearing conversations about interesting things. Maybe by your second or third drink, you're willing to step in and try something a little bit different. And then,
There's no televisions to watch here anyways.
Sure.
Yeah.
So might as well talk
that's
to somebody.
another one
Yeah.
of these bars that I love, because there's not a
There's not a television
TV.
in sight. Yeah.
There's not, except for recording this silly thing.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't touched my phone since we've been in here, so I haven't even tweeted the pictures I've taken yet. So I'll tweet when I get out of here. But
That's what it is. It's a love of friends. It's a love of spirits. It's a love about just connecting and having the drinks be a part of an experience.
all right. Well, Jason, thanks for inviting us down. Thanks
Yeah,
for
my
bringing
pleasure.
the Ardbeg and Glenmorangie guys in here, and Cameron. Let us talk to Cameron. Thanking us for setting up the man cave shop in the face of your bar here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
we really appreciate it. And we'll be back as long as you don't change the address. Cheers man.
Thank you.